Well, security experts have warned against the CSIRO's partnership with China's Qingdao National Laboratory for Marine Science and Technology. The two science agencies are currently embarking on a research partnership that could see the development of a satellite-based laser to detect foreign submarines. Michael Shoebridge is the Director of Defence Strategy and National Security at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute and joins me now live from Canberra. Thank you for your time, Peta. Michael. You read these sorts of stories and you've got to ask yourself, are we stupid that we'd have this sort of joint project on an issue where it pertains to stealth or surveillance on submarines? Why on earth are we involved with the Chinese agency here?
I think this kind of research partnership is a ghost of Christmas past in a lot of ways. It's back from a time when we just saw opportunity in working with the Chinese state before we understood that they were a very assertive authoritarian power. There's lots of legitimate research, and some of this oceans and a climate effect on the oceans research, perfectly legitimate science with lots of applications, but there's military utility to understanding how the oceans work, and that's where the problem is with this kind of partnership.
I guess there's also the issue of when you have IT platforms that get set up between two organisations, science organisations that are doing a joint project. You've also got the risk that joint IT network can go further afield, certainly in the case of the CSIRO, into other issues. Are we so blinded by the fact that when China knocks on our door and says to our science agencies or our universities, indeed, we've got this many $1 million to put on the table for a joint project, we just want the money and we don't ask enough questions?
I think that's partly it, because I think our civilian research organisations, and that's as true of the government-owned CSIRO, don't put national security at the front of their minds, because that's not what they're about. They need to get help from our formal national security agencies, ASIO, and the other parts of our government machinery who know all about the national security risks in research. The Chinese are very good at having their state agencies work with their national labs, and in fact this lab that the CSIRO is partnering with is a key part of military-civil fusion. So they're working very closely with the PLA, including the Naval Submarine Academy. They manage the combination of national security and science very well. We need to do that, and we're not doing it well now.
And look, I also understand that this lab in China also does significant work with the Russians, looking at satellite sensors, underwater drones, and intelligent buoys to, again, look at atmospheric conditions and climate patterns and any maritime issue that might be pertinent to submarine warfare. Again, if it's the Chinese and the Russians, what on earth is our peak science organisation, CSIRO, doing in the mix?
Exactly, and I think this is where the new guidelines that Education Minister Dan Tehan put in place in November last year would be useful if they applied to the CSIRO. A key part of those guidelines is to tell the research organisations, the universities, they need to know a lot more about their partner that they're working with. So knowing that this Qingdao National Lab is working with the Russians on issues related to defence capability, knowing they work with the biggest Chinese shipbuilder for the People's Liberation Army on underwater delivery systems, and knowing that they have a real interest in advancing China's military power is something the CSIRO needs to do, and it needs to work with our national security agencies to close the knowledge gap that they seem to have.
Yeah, but I also think there, and the point you make is right, I think the Education Minister, Dan Tehan, needs to close his own loophole in the guidelines that would enable, like he's tough on the universities if they're going into this space, or he's certainly asking questions and putting up a framework. Why on earth is a taxpayer-funded science organisation, our peak science body, allowed to do what we would question a university doing? Why is that?
I think you're right. I think this is where the machinery of government really needs to tighten up. And as I say, the Chinese machinery of government is very tight. Xi Jinping gave a speech at this national lab, at Qingdao National Lab in June 2018, talking about the key role that science will play in advancing China's maritime power. He talked about military-civil fusion, bringing all the fruits of scientific research to China's military power. And the 1,000 Talents program, which some of these CSIRO scientists are a part of, is a way of getting the best international talent to advance China's military capability. We haven't talked about the Talents program yet, but I think that's another key gap in how we are managing this.
Michael Shoebridge, I have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time. And I suspect, Dan Tehan's got some work on his desk in the morning to sort that mess out and close that loophole. Thank you again for your time.
Great.